I always know when Brian has put a bit on somebody else's record. Even if he hasn't told me, I know. I know it's this guitar.
Hello everybody and welcome to a new video and welcome to a new episode of the Queen Chronicles, the series in where we talk about all things Queen. This is probably my favorite series of the whole channel. Now, because of the fact that I decided to do these in chronological order, on the last episode we actually talked about the Vox AC30. In case you missed that video and you want to watch it afterwards, I will link to it at the end of this video and also in the description down below. But today we talk about the Old Lady, the most iconic guitar ever made. The Brian May Red Special guitar. Now, really think about it. What guitar is more iconic than the Red Special? Okay, so we have Angus Young with the SG, but Tony Iommi also plays an SG, and Pete Townshend, and they're just SGs. David Gilmour with the Black Strat, well, Eric Clapton plays a Black Strat. Maybe Stevie Ray Vaughan's, but it's essentially just a Strat, a 3-tone Sunburst Stratocaster. And don't get me started on Jimmy Page's Les Paul Sunburst. Again, it's just a Sunburst. Jimmy Page actually plays a double neck SG that is very iconic. But then again, the Eagles did too. So really, truly, this is one of a kind guitar. This guitar is 1 out of 1. Yes, of course, there's replicas of that guitar. I own one myself. But that's not the point. He made that guitar from scratch with his father. And he started building the guitar when he was 17. And they built the guitar from 1963 to 1965. And here's the crazy part. They built the guitar because they couldn't afford to buy a guitar. Maybe if he could have afforded to, he would have bought a Fender or a Gibson. But because of the fact that he could not afford the guitar, they decided to build a guitar using materials that were just lying around the house. And they only had one motto in mind. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And if they were going to do it, they were going to try to make it better than everybody else's. And I really think they did. Now, the Brian May guitar, or Red Special, is the most recognizable aspect of the Queen sound, other than Freddie Mercury's voice, of course. But I think it's really downplayed how important this guitar really was. And really is. Now, I'm actually lucky enough to actually own a copy of the Red Special book that was written by Brian May and actually has a lot of pictures of the guitar being built. I actually have a signed copy of that. That's one of my most precious treasures. But in that book, there's a lot of really cool pictures that I am going to share with you guys. So check this out. According to the book and to Brian May himself, the body of the guitar itself was actually built from oak, from a tabletop that they had just laying around at home. And the neck was actually carved out of a fireplace mantle. How crazy is that? No power tools. All of it was handmade. Even the tremolo springs were actual valve springs from a motorbike. But yeah, that's crazy. The inlays were actually taken from a button box that belonged to Brian's mother, and there were actual buttons made out of mother of pearl. And the tremolo arm is famously known for being a knitting needle. Anyway, so that's the guitar itself. I could talk about this guitar for hours because I am really passionate about the sound and the construction of the guitar. But I won't, not on this video. Okay, so what made this guitar better than all the guitars we had available at that time? Well, the Red Special was definitely ahead of its time. First of all, it had 24 frets. Not a lot of guitars had 24 frets back then. Maybe a Rickenbacker, and I'm not even sure about that. So yeah, you had a full 2-octave guitar there. Also, because of the way the guitar was designed, it actually stayed in tune better than any guitar that was in the market back then, because it had nearly zero friction. Because of the roller you had on the bridge, and the way the strings sit on the nut, and they go straight up to the tuning keys, with almost no angle at all. You know how you always have the problem with the G-string on a Les Paul guitar? Well, that really is a design flaw, because of that angle. It's so angled that the guitar string gets stuck on that nut. You won't have that issue with the Brian May guitar, even if you play around with the tremolo bar. You can actually dive bomb on that thing and it'll stay in tune, no problem. And that's without a locking nut. So yeah, that's a perfect design right there. But the thing that always catches everybody's attention is the 6 switches located on the guitar. And that gives it the most tonal options out of any guitar I've ever played. The way they work is that you can actually turn on and off each individual pickup by itself. So you can have 1 pickup at a time, 2 pickups at a time, or you can actually have all 3 pickups at a time combined. Or you can have the 2 farthest pickups going on at the same time, the bridge and the neck pickup, which you couldn't really do on any other guitar back then. But also, with the second row of switches, you can actually set them to be in phase or out of phase from each other. And when you have all three of them on, you can actually set any one of them to be out of phase with the other two. And that gives you a lot of tonal options. So originally, the guitar only had 2 pickups, and they were actually wound and designed by Brian May himself. And here's a picture of that. And then he added a 3rd pickup, also made by him. Funny enough, they actually kind of look like the pickups the guitar has today, but they were wound and designed by Brian May himself. And because he didn't really have a lot of experience, he did not wind them correctly. So even though they sounded really good, they had an issue. Whenever he bent the strings, the sound would just cut off. Because of the way the magnets were set up, they would actually interfere with each other. So he saved up and bought the Burns Trisonic pickups we know and love today. And apparently, Brian May still has the original pickups at home in a box, and they can be retrofitted onto the guitar. Because if you look closely at the guitar, you will see that around the pickup, there's a pickup ring that actually holds the pickup in place. If you take them both out, they will actually expose the original cavity for the original pickups, and they will fit snugly in there. So that would be really interesting to see. Brian May actually says that with time, of course, he figured out what the problem was, and he would be interested in seeing what the pickups would sound like. But I don't know if he's going to go through all that trouble. It would be amazing though to see. Anyway, I don't want to go too crazy on this video about the construction of the guitar, but there's 2 more things I want to point out. First of all, when Brian May embarked on this journey of building a guitar, he had only had a lot of experience playing a classical guitar with a thick neck, because classical guitars have thick necks. And he figured that because of the fact that the string pull of an electric guitar string was going to be a lot harder than a string pull on a classical guitar, it needed to have a thicker neck. So he built it just like that, with a thicker neck than a classical guitar. I mean, that neck is huge. One of my friends actually described it best. It's like holding an apple. And a second thing, the guitar was actually supposed to feedback because he was like going crazy over Hendrix and how his guitar feedbacked so much. So he wanted to enhance that. That's why the guitar is actually semi-hollow, and it was supposed to actually feature an F-hole, but he never got around to it. Thank God. Can you imagine that? Anyway, so I'm lucky enough to actually have one of the best Red Special replicas ever made. This was made by a factory called RS Guitars that actually went bankrupt a long time ago. But if you go into the forums and stuff like that, you will see that this is regarded as the best replica ever made. At least up to the moment when I bought it. So this guitar is actually going to be featured on the next Guitar of the Month video in my channel. Anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop me a like, drop me a comment in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel like your man if you haven't yet. And if you want to help me out and buy me a cup of coffee, or maybe keep me hydrated with an IPA, just hit the join button down there. It'll be well appreciated. I will see you guys next time. Pat out. Metal on, dudes.
So I don't know if we were clever or if we were lucky, but it did work. You know, it did make this, it did sing, this guitar. And still does, thank God.